Hello, welcome to Pinder Ponder. This is Pinder, your host. There was a quote I read the other day, and I believe it deserves some pondering. Basically, the quote goes, if you leave hydrogen alone for long enough, it'll begin to think about itself. I found the quote very interesting when I first heard it. I was like, what do they mean if you leave hydrogen alone long enough? It'll start to think? Atoms can't think, elements don't think. But then I pondered on it. I started to think, what do they mean by that? What is the actuality that they're trying to convey? So I thought about the formation of stars. Okay, the formation of stars. Stars form, you have hydrogen and helium, these huge gaseous hydrogen helium clouds that begin to form in space after the Big Bang. They start to come together, form sphere-like things. Trillions upon trillions upon trillions of these hydrogen helium atoms start to centralize, and you get stars. And in the center of those stars, now again, you're starting off with hydrogen. In the center of those stars, it gets dense and heavy enough to start combining these hydrogen and helium atoms that form from the energy from the Big Bang there. It forms this nuclear reactor in space. Trillions of these stars all over the place. They start to compress to the point where they melt onto each other to create more and more complex elements. The stars go supernova, explode. They send these asteroids out, these heavy metals, chunks of iron. They go flying. That's what shooting stars are. Then you have some collide into each other and almost become suspended, but not so much, but momentarily enough to start to form the Earth, other planets. And while this happens, the complexity of that hydrogen atom is what we're basically talking about here. The complexity of the hydrogen atom has now changed from just being this hydrogen atom to helium, to lithium, carbon, beryllium, sodium, potassium, all these other different elements, all the way up until iron being flung out of these exploding stars. And now you've got this hunk of iron that slows and cools down just enough to start making even more complex elements, more complex, I wouldn't say elements, more complex molecules. Water starts to cool down enough to start hosting life. And that's the craziest part, is now this life eventually evolves to a point where you have human beings, and these human beings are able to reflect upon all of its history there. I thought that was a very powerful perspective from a very simple and almost inintuitive quote that if you leave hydrogen alone for long enough, it'll begin to think about itself. I want listeners out there, if you can, ponder on that quote and tell me, maybe my perspective isn't the best perspective on it. If you have a different idea of what that quote possibly can mean, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much.